There's a 90% chance your ready position sucks, based on the tens of thousands of hours I've spent coaching everyday tennis players. Without checking all 4 critical boxes needed, you'll never move around the court as quickly or smoothly as you should. So let's dive right into today's lesson to find out what they are. I just got back from Indian Wells, California, where I did 6 days of doubles strategy clinics, worked with some amazing students. If you're one of them, thank you so much for coming out. And one thing really jumped out at me about the ready position or preparation that tennis players have. I'll get into what that one big thing is in a second, but first, let's look at some professional examples. And I use this one a lot this year. I want you to look at the Bryan brothers here as they prepare and they do their split step and they come down into their ready position. 2 things we're going to look at here from this angle. Number 1 is the knee bend that both players have. I want you to think about this in terms of like playing defense in basketball. If you're straight up and down, you just wouldn't give yourself much leverage to be able to push and turn and pivot in whatever direction the offensive player was moving. The second big part of this is the width. I want you to look at how wide, let me get a better line, the shoulders are here, and look at how wide the stance is. Professional tennis players are almost always right around double shoulder width apart when they come down with their feet. Okay, now we're looking at Andy Murray from the side, so we can look at the other 2 of our 4 check boxes that we need. So here's his split step. He's coming down in his ready position, and I want you to watch his feet. When he comes down from his split step hop, watch how his heels never actually touch the court. His weight stays on the balls of his feet, and he maintains this gap between his heels and the court. And the second part, or actually, I guess the 4th thing that we're talking about now, is if I draw a line from the balls of his feet straight downwards at a 90-degree angle, you'll see that most of his weight, his body weight, is on the right side of that line. So what does that mean? It means he's got a little bit of forward balance or lean to his posture. And what that does is it keeps a lot of energy stored on the balls of his feet so that he can athletically spring forwards and out in whatever direction the ball is moving. So those are our 4 critical check boxes that we have to be able to execute in order to move around the court as efficiently, smoothly, as athletically as possible. So now that we've seen what the professional players do, let's take a look at some of my recent clinic students. Okay, I'm going to rapid fire through a couple students from a 3035. Don't worry, 4045 players. I'm going to show you yourselves next. But here's a couple of 3035 players. And as the ball's getting ready to be hit by the player on the other side, watch the player in white just stand there. So are we seeing any of the 4 check boxes? So we have a narrow stance, we have no bend in the knees, the heels are flat on the court, and we don't have any forward posture. The joke I was kind of making during these camps that I was just doing is this looks like somebody standing in the cereal aisle at the grocery store, just kind of trying to decide which box to pick out on the shelf. This doesn't look like somebody who's ready for an athletic response. Okay, player 2 from one of my 3035 camps. So the ball's getting ready to be hit on the other side. Here comes the swing, and there's the hit, and here's a ready position. So we've got a narrow stance, straight legs, heels are flat on the court, and no weight transferring forwards. All right, here's player number 3. Ball gets hit on the other side, and here's our ready position. Narrow stance, no bend in the knees. It looks like one heel is off the court, but the other one is flat on the ground. So we got a little bit of one check box, and we don't have any forward posture. Okay, here's player 4, 3035. Wow, a split step. How about that? First split step we've seen here. By the way, this is totally normal. Split step is very rare. And by the way, this is a repeat student of mine. So he knew that I was looking for this, and he's been practicing his split step. So this time, okay, so we've got one foot definitely not getting flat on the court. The other one is getting a little bit flat, not terrible. We've got a little bit of bend in the knees, and we've got some width here, but is it 2 times shoulder width apart? No, I would say it's about 1.5. And we have a little bit of forward posture, but not great. So we're partially checking some boxes here. Okay, so if you've been sitting on your high horse so far, being like, oh, I'm not like those players, like I'm better than that, I've been doing this a long time, and this is normal, what we're seeing so far. And if you're like a 4-0 player, a 4-5 player, let's look at some 4-0, 4-5 players from the more advanced group that I did. So here comes the hit. Okay, we're seeing a lift here. By the way, this player's done a clinic with me in the past. Coming down. So, okay, so the heels are not touching down on the court. That's good. However, the stance here is very narrow, not much of an athletic base to push off of. We've got a little bit of bend in the knees, but not very much. And we've got a little bit of forward posture, so we're partially checking some of the boxes here. All right, next 4-0, 4-5 player, getting ready for the hit on the other side. There's the hit. And we've got a very narrow stance. We've got one foot that has, no, well, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, the right foot has a little bit of gap between the heel and the court. A little bit of bend in the knees. Looks like pretty straight up and down, not much forward posture. So partially checking some boxes here. All right, here's another 4-0, 4-5 player. Here comes the hit. There's the hit. Here's the ready position. Narrow, straight up and down. One foot has a little bit of heel off the court. The other foot is flat. It looks like we have a little bit of forward posture, so partially checking some boxes. Here's the last 4-0, 4-5 player. There's the hit on the other side. We're in full-on serial shopping mode right here. Super narrow. We got a little bit of baby gap in the right foot. And we've got straight knees. We've got straight up and down. This is somebody who's not playing sports. This is definitely somebody who's just kind of casual and watching. So maybe you've noticed this is just during short court kind of warm-up rallies, and maybe some of you are saying, wow, it's not real points, Ian, like don't be so serious. And there's some partial truth to that. Like you don't need to go hardcore, like full intensity right out of the gate. However, a lot of these players, even the high-level ones, are very static. And this is just showing, it's demonstrating underlying habits to be flat, to be narrow, to be straight up and down, to not have any forward balance. And you're not going to be a very good tennis player if this is your kind of base response or reaction or habit. So here's the fascinating part for me. So I showed all these players their ready positions and their split steps. We talked about the 4 check boxes. I kind of demonstrated what we're looking for, showing the pros and like demonstrating myself with the 4 different things that we just talked about. And then I had these players practice. Now here's the fascinating part. After talking about this, I talked to individual players and gave them feedback on how they were doing. And everybody did better after practicing this, but here's the thing that really jumped out at me. So here's the first practice one from this player. Is this double shoulder width apart? So this is way better. So this player was super narrow before, but it's not 2x, it's maybe 1.5. And so watch as I go through and I start giving some feedback here, and I'm telling this player in green, let's push it out a little bit wider. Let's go a little bit wider. And I'm giving the same feedback to that player in white. And look at where he started back a couple of seconds ago. Look at how narrow these are as he's practicing. Just barely over 1 time shoulder width apart. So I gave him the feedback as well. And I'm like, dude, you're a tall guy. Like, let's go ahead. There we go. So now this is starting to look pretty athletic, right? It's still not quite 2 times shoulder width apart, but it's getting there. Oh, look at the player in green now. Not quite 2 times shoulder width apart, but it's getting there. Now we're starting to look like tennis players, right? Let's go back to that clip really quick of the Bryan brothers. Just kidding. Let's look at Serena Williams because I just realized that visually this is like the very similar angle. So here's her split step. Look at her coming down. Look at all those 4 check boxes. Look at the bend in her knees. We can't see the heels off the court here, but she's definitely got her body weight. You can see it. Her heels are not dropping all the way down. And look at the width that she's working with here. Getting really athletic and really wide to be able to push off and move in the right direction. So now back to the amateur players. Like this is looking way better, right? Now we're totally in the ballpark. The thing that really blew my mind is I allowed my students to let them practice coming down in their new ready positions. And then as we came back and I showed them the video of themselves practicing over and over and over again, I heard this comment from the players. And they were basically saying, no way, like this is way too wide. Ian, I was already doing pretty well, and now you're asking me to go wider, and this feels like it's totally excessive, and there's no way this is accurate. And then we sat down, I showed them exactly what I just showed you, and they were like, oh, wow, oh, that looks like, now I look like a tennis player. Now I look like a good tennis player. Like I'm actually getting ready, and I'm actually athletic, and I'm actually giving myself some spring to be able to push off in whichever direction the ball goes. So if a proper ready position feels exaggerated, what does that mean about the normal one that you usually use? It means you've probably been unathletic and slow and in a bad athletic position the whole rest of your tennis career. So practice this at home. These are fundamentals that make a huge difference in your game. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching.